Okay, there we go. Hi.
I'm in kitty jail. I'm a bad girl.
She's not a bad girl. She's just not doing what you
I'm
want her
just
to
trying
do.
to change.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4,
Before we get
3,
Oh, look at that face.
2, 1.
I'm gonna request a ride tonight.
Love
fine.
Talk Radio.
I fear they might have a thunderstorm coming. Ah,
It's all good. All right, so yeah, we got, let's see.
We're live.
We're live on Facebook and the Vibe Radio Network, and good evening, everybody.
Should I let you go now?
She would greatly appreciate that.
we're still waiting on people to sneak in.
Yeah.
Right now it's just me.
We'll give folks just a moment.
Facebook changed though.
Oh, yeah,
Again.
we know.
I hate this. Hang on. Let's see if I
Okay.
can fix this.
Where's our event? Where are we on
How do
Facebook?
you see the light? There it is.
I'm trying
No,
to find
Facebook fully changed. What's up,
Yeah.
Patrick?
it. Okay,
Hey, Patrick.
there we go.
I'm texting your mom.
Yes.
Oh, you want to talk about frost giants, Patrick?
Frost
Let
giant-
me help you out
Yeah.
there, bud.
Lee's got you on frost giants.
Actually, for real, if you let me sit here and talk about frost giants forever, this will be the best employment I've ever had.
So
And
should I
I
switch seats with you and you do this with Chris?
haven't researched frost giants properly. I will need to quote sagas, bro.
All right.
So we're drinking mead tonight, aka Viking's blood, and that's literally what this mead is called.
We have
Skull.
to be the generic
Skull.
We have to be the generic Americans and make everything Norway Vikings. So.
I'm not the maker of the mead, I'm just the drinker.
Yep. But no objections. It's
No,
tasty.
yeah, certainly not. While you're there, it probably wouldn't be the first thing I mentioned, but
Yeah. No. No.
Maybe mention Frozen first.
I almost wore my Frozen costume, but I was like, I can't have the fan and I'll be too hot in that sweatshirt.
Yeah, also smart that you probably did.
It's warm.
But it's a tasty mead. It's a dry mead.
Mhm.
Yes. It's a very tasty mead.
Yes. Cheers, everybody. Skull.
It's like tea, actually. I
Mm-hmm.
like it.
It is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, it's only been a week. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're back in the
We're back in the living room
back
with
in
a new
the
couch.
living room, new couch. We did not leave room for our skeletal buddy this time.
You won't be seeing my arm this time either.
Yeah.
I'm safely tucked away.
Maybe a foot if there's enough of it.
Ah.
No,
I don't think I can go that far. Honestly,
You don't want to throw that hip out.
yeah.
But-
I started
Become a
getting back
fiery-
pain recently.
Oh yeah. Become a fiery and just detach your hip and throw it.
Yeah.
But so not too terribly much is new since last week. The only other thing I would mention just right off the bat is that instead of coming back in 2 weeks' time, it'll be 3 weeks until our next show. But we'll get back to that at the end of the show. In the meantime,
Last week in May, last Monday in May.
Yeah.
So.
In the meantime, we have Haunted Norway to discuss
Yes.
with you, and this was an episode that was a lot of fun to research. I mean, it's
I just threw Chris in. I gave him a whole bunch of stories and said, pick what you want.
yeah. So I got to do a little picking and choosing, and I did researched and added one in myself.
And there is a Haunted Norway 2 started, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
for sure.
yeah, so there's so much that we were not going to be able to get to on this episode. So we'll definitely be revisiting this land at some point.
Yes.
But yeah, so you want to go ahead and dive right in?
Yep. All right. So the Kingdom of Norway is an ancient country dating back over 1,000 years. With such a vast history, it is still only well understood by a few people outside of its borders, and it's best known today for a small handful of things. First, the Vikings of a millennial ago, who raided the European countries and ventured to far-flung corners of the world. Second, being the oil-rich country of today. Third, beautiful mountains, glaciers, and fjords. Fourth, punching well above their weight in winter sports, particularly the biathlon. And fifth, having one of the best standards of living and life expectancies
They live a long time.
in the world. That last one might seem a little ironic considering what we're here to talk about with the hauntings tonight, but hey, we've noticed that legends and folklore. I just lost my place. There we go. Where are we going? Legends and folklore were absent from that list as well. That said, ghostly tales, spirited encounters still have a place in modern Norway. Many people forget that Norway wasn't always an idyllic country at the northern reaches of the world. It was only in the 1950s and 60s that Norway's wealth and quality of life started to grow. Before that, many would have equated Norway with poverty and bitter cold, and in a country so far north that half of it is above the Arctic Circle, the fall and the winter nights are long and dark, providing the perfect environment for ghost stories and spooky legends to take root in the Norwegian history and culture. Even against the beautiful backdrop of the Norwegian landscape, people once saw spirits and death in everything around them. Some thought that the northern lights were an omen of impending danger, while others thought it was the souls of dead virgins floating across the sky. In Norse mythology, the northern lights are called the Bifrost Bridge, or the Rainbow Bridge to Asgard. According to folklore and legends, the Norwegian mountains and forests are riddled by trolls and other mysterious creatures. While not necessarily evil, their twisted faces can be scary and have frightened people for centuries. The ideas of trolls come from Old Norse mythology and is inspired by Jotnar, the main enemies of the gods. These creatures were giants, and in central parts of southern Norway, where the biggest mountains of northern Europe are located, lies the national park of Jotunheimen.
Jotunheimen.
You got
I'm just going to
this.
let him do this whole script. The meaning of the name is Home of the Giants. So while spirited tales and folklore may not be at the forefront of Norwegian culture anymore, you don't need to look far to see the lasting impact on the cultural fabric of the ancient country near the edge of the world.
I've been practicing Norwegian.
I have not. I'm just going to sit here and drink.
We haven't even gotten into the challenging pronunciations yet.
Oh yeah, no. Norway has fun with a lot of their town names.
Oh yes. Yeah, and we will be touching on some of those this evening. This is gonna be a fun
I'm just going to
one.
let him do the script. Give me the computer.
Pardon you? I can jump in when needed. Let's do it that way. No. We are not doing this because last year I did the entirety of the Welsh one by myself because you lost your voice.
I did.
Yeah. So no, you're not getting off that easy.
Norwegian is significantly easier than Welsh.
It is undoubtedly so much easier.
Norwegian. Oh, hang on. Let me just share my fun fact about Norwegian and most of the Scandinavian languages, apart from Finnish. Even though I'm not gonna go into Finland. Anyway, most of the Scandinavian languages are very easy for English speakers to learn because quite a lot of the words are very similar.
They are. There's quite a few that are similar, and once you know the kind of how the patterns, how the words fit together, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few words that I find personally very challenging.
Oh yeah.
But overall, not too shabby.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, we're going to start our spooky Norwegian expedition in Oslo, the capital city of Norway and its largest city.
Is everyone slow in Oslo?
At the center of the city's historic waterfront stands the imposing Akershus fortress. Built during the reign of King Håkon V in 1299, Akershus was intended to replace a pair of smaller and weaker castles in the wake of some earlier attacks by a nobleman from the nearby city of Sarpsborg. The resulting fortress has subsequently withstood numerous sieges over the subsequent centuries and today stands as a popular cultural center. A visit to Akershus Castle is a journey through the history of Norway from the 1300s to the present day. The legendary Queen Margaret, founder of the Kalmar Union in 1389, lived in the castle in medieval times. The Danish woman was married already as a 10-year-old girl to the Norwegian king Håkon VI, other way around there. And as a young queen, she lived at Akershus Castle. During her reign, she managed to unite Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and the countries flourished under the only reigning queen Norway has ever had. In 1624, there was a terrible fire and almost the entire city burned completely down. Norwegian King Christian IV rebuilt the city and moved it from its location adjacent to the fortress below the hill of Ekeberg to the behind the fortress, away from the water, where the city's center still exists in the modern day. King Christian IV believed it would be easier to protect the city if it was behind the fortress, and considering that Oslo has safely thrived in this location in the years since, it seems he might have been onto something. Today, this part of the city center is called Kvadraturen, and houses some of the oldest buildings in Oslo, among them the Old City Hall from 1641. The name Kvadraturen comes from the rectangular street pattern of Christian IV's Renaissance town. He chose this pattern so that it would be easier to shoot at the enemy as far as possible straight ahead with the cannons at Akershus fortress. Fun fact, after having rebuilt the town, the king renamed the city after himself. This is why Oslo was called Christiania from 1624 until it was decided in 1924 to take back the old city name of Oslo. Akershus fortress has also been a prison, with a section of it known as the slavery because the prisoners could be rented out for work in the city. It housed many rebels and criminals throughout Norwegian history. Sentences often involved hard labor, and the prison was infamous for using irons, chains, and prisoner isolation as disciplinary techniques. The Norwegian Robin Hood, Ole Holslund, committed suicide in this prison cell in the castle in 1848. He was well known for his escapes, no less than 11 times, and his spectacular robbery of the Norwegian bank in 1835. He even escaped Akershus once, but he was locked back in 3 years later. Apparently, that was just too much for him. The immediate proximity of the sea was a key feature of the fortress. Naval power was a vital military force since the majority of Norwegian commerce during that time was by sea. The fortress was strategically important for the capital and therefore Norway as well. Whoever controlled Akershus fortress ruled Norway. During World War II, the fortress surrendered without fighting to Nazi Germany in 1940 when the Norwegian government evacuated the capital in the face of the unprovoked German assault on Denmark and Norway. During the war, people were executed at Akershus by the German occupiers. After the war, 8 Norwegian traitors, including Vidkun Quisling, who had been tried for war crimes and sentenced to death, were also executed at the fortress. The prison was closed in 1950. In the years since, the main building has been restored. It has been used for official events and dinners for foreign heads of state. Akershus Fortress is still a military area, but is open to the public to visit and walk the grounds. In addition to the castle, the Norwegian Armed Forces Museum and Resistance Museum can also be visited here. The fortress also houses the Royal Mausoleum, where, amongst others, King Haakon VII, Queen Maud, and their son, King Olaf V, are buried. That's all just a snapshot of the history of Akershus Fortress, a critical piece of Norway's history and culture that, as you might expect, has a few stories of the spirited sort as well. Many visitors and employees at Akershus claim to have experienced something they cannot explain. Unexplained footsteps, disembodied voices, strange smells. Many of these claims stretch back centuries. Some of the supernatural occurrences are more visual in nature, as people have seen a variety of spirits that are there 1 second and gone the next, including guards that seem to be standing post until they vanish. One spirit that has earned a reputation for itself is called Mantelgeisten, or the Cloaked Ghost. This woman has been around for decades, and she always emerges from the darkness wearing a long, dark cloak but having no face. She is seen often returning to the room that she has claimed as her chamber in Margarita Salen, the Margarita Hall. Despite her lack of a face, she is still more human than the next spirit at Akershus. We'll turn our attention to the front gates of the castle. If Akershus had a weak point as a fortification, it may have been the front gate. This was the case with many fortifications of the era, and a custom was developed to help ward off ill luck at this weakest point. During the construction of Akershus, a living dog was bricked into the wall. This dog would not be content to simply die as some lucky totem for the residents of the castle. This dog returned as Melkanisen, the vicious dog. Legend said that anyone who encountered Malcannison would be dead by the end of the year. In 1550, the legend of Malcannison was put to the test. Amid a wicked storm in the dead of night, the wall where Malcannison was walled up collapsed. The commander of the fortress, Peter Hansen, insisted on inspecting the damage immediately. The rank and file guards of the fortress panicked. They knew of Malcannison, and the prospect of encountering this fearful creature in the dead of night paralyzed them with fear. Commander Hansen was furious with the guards and took it upon himself to inspect the damage. As he entered the collapsed section, a dog with sharp fangs and glowing red eyes emerged from the darkness. A length of broken chain wrapped around its neck. Peter threw his lamp at the beast's head and fled from the corridor, frightened half to death. A couple days later, Commander Hansen was making his rounds at the fortress aback his horse. As he passed the gallows, his horse dropped dead under him. Peter was crushed by the horse, his neck broken in the incident. He lingered in bed before finally succumbing to his injuries within the year. In the years since Commander Hansen's death, others have been unfortunate enough to also come face to face with Malcannison and have suffered similar fates. While we generally love the idea of communing with animal spirits, we think that it might be best to give Malcannison his space. Speaking of spirits that are less than human, we also want to mention the night pyres. These small creatures are about the size of a baby, but take the shape of a grown woman. These small women are wreathed in flames and wear hideous smiles. Their terrible laughter will freeze even the bravest of people in their tracks. If their presence wasn't awful enough, their appearance is said to precede a fire at the fortress. While there are many more spirits that we can mention at Akershus, we'll share one more for this evening. In 1563 through 1570, Denmark, Norway, and members of their coalition were embroiled in the Northern 7 Years' War against the Kingdom of Sweden. In 1567, King Erik XIV of Sweden sent a contingent of troops to Oslo to capture Akershus fortress. Upon arriving, the Swedish troops found themselves woefully short of the heavy guns that would be required to take the fortress, so instead they set up camp outside of Akershus and waited. The troops, bored out of their minds, got up to all sorts of mischief. One night, some of the Swedish troops got incredibly drunk. One of these mounted his horse and charged the fortress drawbridge, screaming his intentions of conquering Akershus and Norway single-handedly. He and his horse were shot and killed on the spot. While the drunken soldier faded into the historical record, his enraged horse has been seen on the drawbridge, scaring people out of their wits. Just as with Malcannison, those who are unfortunate enough to see this demon horse will die within a year of their encounter.
So Patrick wants to pet the dog, not the night pyres.
I want to pet the night pyres.
I was going to say,
I put the night pyres in there for you.
Yes.
Malcannison, bad juju.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no. If you want to live another year, probably best to give him his space.
Yeah.
Also, hey Dana.
Alright, so this next one is in Telemark. It's to the west in the interior of the Norwegian landscape. And it's a village of Dalen where the river Toke flows into Lake Bandak. Dalen has always been a relatively small community, but in 1892 the expansion of the Telemark Canal brought an influx of visitors to Dalen's doorstep. Many passengers would ride ferries through the canal from the eastern locales such as Oslo and Grenland as they traveled to destinations in central and western Norway. With the influx of visitors came the idea of a hotel in Dalen. Businessman Hans Larsen, and along with his two associates Lars Rod and Anton Hansen, commissioned architect Haldord Larsen Borf.
Yes.
Woohoo! To design the hotel. Borf was a highly trained and respected architect, and he designed the hotel in the style of a Swiss chalet, the elements of national romanticism and dragstil, or dragon style. Yes, I do want to go to this hotel. FYI, they don't have internet. Just so you know. It is a beautiful blend of complex woodworking, carved dragon heads, turrets, spires, balconies, and cornices. For all its ornate woodwork, the partners would keep the official name simple, Dalen Hotel. Though it quickly earned itself a flattering nickname, the Fairy Tale Hotel. After its opening in 1894, the hotel drew royal guests from all over Europe, playing host to the likes of King Oscar II of Sweden, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, King Leopold II of Belgium, King Haakon VII of Norway and his family, plus several members of the British aristocracy. During the German occupation of Norway during World War II, Dalen Hotel was used as a resort for German officers. Most of the building's interior was stripped out and sold for parts. The building fell into disrepair due to the lack of proper maintenance, and after the war, the building was bought by singer and evangelist Age Samuelson, with the intent of restoring the hotel to its former glory. Though Samuelson failed to raise the necessary funds to renovate the building, he gave the hotel significant press exposure, and towards the end of the 1980s, restoration efforts had begun in earnest. The hotel was reopened once the remodeling was finished in 1992. In 2000, the hotel was honored with the Europa Nostra Award for Outstanding Conservation. Today, this old hotel stands not only as an architectural gem, but it's also one of the most well-known haunted hotels in Norway. Even though they call themselves the Fairy Tale Hotel, not every associated story with this place has a fairy tale ending. Let's start back in the late 1800s. A young English lady named Miss Greenfield checked into room 17 one spring morning and proceeded to spend several months there, all alone. No one knew she was pregnant. After she gave birth, she suddenly checked out. When a maid came to clean up the room after her, the door was locked. Staff managed to force open the door and found it empty except for a dead baby on the bed. Although the story doesn't specify whether it was killed or died of natural causes, Miss Greenfield was arrested in England, but she killed herself before she could stand trial. The English lady is said to walk the corridors of the hotel, and the sound of a crying baby is said to still be heard in room 17. Every night to this day, the hotel sets the table for Miss Greenfield and lights a candle for her. It is said that the flame is never still, always flickering. If you're inclined to try to stay in room 17, be prepared for a restless night, particularly if you're a man. Men seem finely tuned to the presence of Miss Greenfield, and she has left many of them quite unsettled throughout the wee hours of the night. Guests with babies should not plan to stay in this room, as the hotel clearly states that nothing should be placed in the cradle in this room. While they do not elaborate on why nothing should be placed in the cradle, we're not sure if we want too many details on that particular topic. Aside from the grim chapter of Dalen's past, a stay here is highly recommended for those who love history, architecture, and hauntings. And if you really want to truly disconnect, as I said, they have no internet.
Mm-hmm.
I am so ready to go to this place.
Place is pretty darn cool.
It is gorgeous.
Alright, so we're going to move north into central Norway, where we can find the third largest city, the city of Trondheim, on the southern shore of Trondheim fjord. This compact yet ancient city is rich with culture, including the landmark Nidaros Cathedral. Nidaros Cathedral, or Nidarosdomen, as it is known in Norwegian, is an imposing Gothic cathedral which started construction in 1070 as the final resting place for King Olaf II of Norway, who was killed in 1030 in the Battle of Stiklestad. Stiklestad, yep. Okay. King Olaf was canonized as Saint Olaf a year later by the Bishop of Nidaros for playing a pivotal role in the introduction of Christianity to Norway. Today, Saint Olaf is the patron saint of Norway. While construction started in 1070, it continued for over the course of 230 years, until it reached substantial completion in 1300. However, additional work, additions, and renovations have continued intermittently since then. The most recent changes were completed in 2001. In addition to its notoriety as the resting place for St. Olaf, Nidaros Cathedral is also the traditional location for the consecration of new kings of Norway and is the northernmost medieval cathedral in the world. Amidst the beautiful and historic architecture of this cathedral, you might just meet one of the most famous ghosts in Norway, the monk. One reliable witness account was printed in the newspaper Aftenposten in 1930. A bishop's wife by the name of Marie Geisich, during a church service in 1924, saw a most unusual sight. As the priest was singing a hymn, she saw an apparition of a medieval monk first standing in an archway in the cathedral. This figure's sad, bright blue eyes locked with hers. Marie recalled he had a tonsure and wore a monk's robe. His face was beautiful, with sharp lines and glowing eyes. The monk walked right through one of the choir members attending the Mass. While the priest was in front of the altar, the monk moved behind him. Alarmed, Marie saw this figure place its hands around the priest's throat and begin to choke him. Others in the church saw his hands encircle the priest's neck, but they did not see the rest of him. The monk then raised his head, and Marie saw that he had a stripe of blood on his throat. Marie, repelled by the sight of blood dripping from his slashed throat, averted her eyes downward, only to look up a moment later to see the monk standing in the area near the church archway again. Despite the blood, she described him as being young and very good-looking. Then he just disappeared. The priest who conducted the service later stated he had gotten a feeling of desperation and then a sense that something was stuck in his throat. Part of the legend is that Marie also saw this apparition remove its own head from its bloody body before it disappeared. Various witnesses over the years have seen this monk throughout the cathedral, in the smaller chapels, and outside near the cemetery. Yet other church members have seen this monk's hands reach out and choke other people as well. It seems this is how he shows his displeasure with people he does not like. This ghost story about this monk is so popular in Norway that it was made into a television series, and it inspired Frode Ingolstad's novel The Monk in 1991. Despite the many eyewitness accounts and the subsequent standing of the Nidarosdomen monk in modern Norwegian culture, historians are quick to point out that the Nidarosdomen was never connected to any order of monks. Regardless, sightings on the tales of the Nidarosdomen monk live on to this day.
So I'm going to make a note.
Yes.
Olaf II, St. Olaf, is actually in Vikings Valhalla. He's Olaf Haraldsson.
Ah, okay.
Or very loosely based off of, but it's that guy.
Okay.
They make him a little bit worse than he is in real life. I like Olaf. He's fine.
So, now the monk, he's not the only unusual activity associated with the cathedral. Other eyewitness accounts mention inexplicable chanting and organ music coming from the Nidarosdomen late at night. Then there are the flower petals. In the early years of Nidarosdomen, the basement was used as a tomb for prominent figures in Trondheim who wished to follow St. Olaf's footsteps to the grave. One particularly tiny room in the basement has a ceiling so low that few people can stand up straight inside. Ever since this room was used as part of the burials in the cathedral's early years, people have spotted rose petals scattered across the floor of the room. When witnesses inquire about these petals, they are told that they just appear. It seems that once a week, fresh rose petals appear and the wilted ones disappear. No one knows who does this or how. The entrance to this room is always kept barred and locked. How are you cleaning up the wilted ones?
Void.
Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing?
Gotta put the voids to work.
Put the voids to work?
Just saying.
Vincent says hello, everybody.
So funny, Nico's been sitting here and Benson's been periodically going over there to be his double.
Yep. Nico's napping tonight.
Yeah, Nico's hiding.
Benson, you are too young to have mead.
Yeah, meat's not good for you.
Too young. You are only 2 years old.
I don't think you'd like it anyways.
No. Alright, so we're going to Fredriksten Fortress. This is in the southeast at the southernmost end of the border with Sweden. We reach the town of Halden. Given its proximity and strategic location in relation to its once sworn enemy, Halden has a tumultuous and violent history though it was never captured by force of an invading army. Aside from the stubbornness and the national pride of the people of Halden, the cornerstone of the community's defense is Fredriksten fortress. Denmark-Norway constructed this fortress in the 17th century as a replacement for another fortress that was ceded to Sweden by the Treaty of Roskilde.
Roskilde.
Roskilde. Sorry, that's my French going. There should be an accent there.
And maybe there should have been an accent there, and I missed that in the edit.
Anyway, in 1658, Fredriksten Fortress was named after King Frederick III of Denmark and Norway, and the town of Halden was also originally named after him, known as Fredrikskjold, between 1665 and 1928. While we do not delve into the reason for the renaming, we will note that Halden translates into the slope, and it's a very appropriate name, that is. From the center of Halden to the imposing monolith of the fortress rises high above the town, peaking at 122 meters above sea level. From the top of the fortress, it's easy to see why it was such a prized defensive position, as it affords excellent views across to the Swedish side of the fjord. Attacked 6 times, but never conquered, the fortress is a perfect model of true grit and national pride. In the autumn of 1718, the Swedish King Charles XII, with his army of 40,000 soldiers, laid down the greatest siege ever to befall Norway. However, 1,400 defenders of the Fredriksten held fast, and after several days were bestowed with a blend of luck and skill. On December 11th of 1718, a musket ball or a piece of grape shot caught King Charles XII in the temple, killing him instantly. Without their monarch, the Swedish army fell back, the war drew to a close, and it was the last time that a European monarch fell in battle. It is said that the defiant spirit of King Charles, hungry for power and fame, still wanders around the fortress, sighing and cursing the soldier who pulled the trigger. His lingering presence is of little surprise, as during his life he was not only known as Your Highness, but also Ironhead, for his incredible stubbornness and arrogance. The death of Charles and his subsequent haunting is not the only mystery to weigh in on the fortress. There's the legend of the Fredriksten Fortress commander dying in battle, and the subsequent death of his mistress,
Den Hvit Dam.
the White Lady. Y'all know there's going to be a White Lady story.
Yep.
Yeah, always.
But we have a different language to use this time, so we will say Den Hvit Dam. Den Hvit Dam.
Upon learning of her lover's death, she threw herself from the highest point, the bell tower, aka the White Tower, desperate to meet him on the other side. Her spirit now supposedly roams the fortress, waiting for their reunion. She's most frequently sighted in a long white dress near the point of her final moments at the White Tower. Another story about a lieutenant who vanished during an inspection at the bell tower. One cold winter night in the 1800s, in 1926, they found, by chance, a body of a soldier buried near the tower. Over the years, some have reported seeing a shade of the soldier entering a secure area of the fortress before disappearing. Given the mystery associated with the vanished lieutenant, many want to attribute the body found and the subsequent haunting back to this unfortunate young man. While this is a sound theory, it doesn't set aside centuries of violent conflict that has occurred at the fortress prior to the lieutenant's disappearance. It is worth noting that another twist on the tale of the White Lady and the missing lieutenant
Den Hvit Dam.
exists and intertwines the two stories. The alternate version claims that Den Hvit Dam,
There you go, you got it.
was abused by the commander of the fortress, driving her to take her own life. Her restless spirit became vengeful and has attacked living men over the years, and one of her victims was the missing lieutenant. As the story goes, she pushed the lieutenant from the heights of the fortress, his body lost at the base of the cliffs below. No matter which version of the stories you tend to favor, if you wish to explore these stories yourself, the fortress is now a national landmark and museum, and it sometimes also hosts special events such as concerts and the like. Imposing reminder to an era of conflict that has thankfully long since come to rest.
mean, I always have fun doing these, but
He's having more fun right now because he's the expert and I'm not.
oh, I'm hardly an expert. I maybe have a beginner going here.
Hi, baby.
But anyways, we'll next move on to Klosterøy, or Cloister Island. This stands at the mouth of Boknafjorden, the Bokna Fjord. This distant point stands a short 30-minute drive to the north of Stavanger, one of Norway's largest cities, via the undersea Byfjord Tunnel. And despite its proximity to this urban center, a visit to Klosterøy can feel like stepping into another world. Klosterøy is so named after the ancient abbey that stands on the island, Utstein Cloister. For reference, it is also referred to as Utstein Abbey, and the use of abbey or cloister is just a matter of translation preference in this case. That linguistics lesson aside, Utstein Cloister is Norway's best preserved medieval monastery. Built in the late 1200s, the abbey, dedicated to St. Lawrence, was home to up to 12 monks at a time. Another 20 to 30 lay people would work the building, doing the cooking and farming. The abbey owned extensive lands and could feed about 250 people a year. It was dissolved in 1537 during the Reformation and was given in fee to Trond Iverson, a nobleman who served as local bailiff. It served as a private residence for many years. In 1899, the estate was acquired by the state and restored as a museum. The renovations completed over the subsequent decades put Utstein Cloister in a position so that the buildings now serve as a venue for concerts, seminars, and conventions. It is now owned entirely by the Utstein Cloister Foundation. Despite its status as a former monastery, housing only men for several centuries, it's a woman's presence that lingers in the place today. In 1759, the monastery was bought by the Garman family.
Garmin?
I don't know. They got an extra.
Jesus.
They got
I'm just wondering.
They got an extra N on here. It's spelled the same, just with an extra N at the end. Garman. Yeah. But Christopher Garman lived there with his wife Cecilia, who unfortunately died in childbirth in 1759 at only 25 years old. Despite his promise to her on her deathbed that he would never marry again, Christopher got engaged again about 20 years later to a woman 36 years his junior.
Oh my.
But that was common back then.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Now, hoping to escape his promise to his wife, he arranged for the wedding to happen in Stavanger Cathedral. But Cecilia found him anyway, appearing in front of him in the middle of the ceremony. Upon seeing her, Christopher fell into a coma and died 8 days later. Today, Utstein Abbey still has ties to the Garman family, as it is Cecile's final resting place. Men need to be cautious in their visitations to Utstein, particularly if they have roaming eyes. Cecilia wanders the monastery in her wedding dress, presumably to make a point. Today, it's possible to have your own wedding at Utstein Abbey, though I would take any vows made there very seriously. Ness. N-E-S.
I know. We're going to the northeast of Oslo, near the Vorma River and the Glomma River join. The picturesque spot of land is home to Ness Kirkeruiner and Ness Church ruins. The Ness Church ruins there were at one time there was once a sign there warning of the many paranormal encounters that people have had here. The hauntings here are attributed to a number of individuals and tragedies that have taken place on the Ness Church property over generations. But first, a little bit of background. The church was first built back in the 12th century, but it was burned down by the Swedes in 1567 during one of the many wars between the two countries. It got rebuilt in 1697, burned again in 1854 after being struck by lightning this time. This time the church was not rebuilt, yet the sturdy walls remain and were ultimately preserved via a concerted conservation effort starting in the early 20th century. Today, the ruins are a popular destination for locals and tourists alike as an ideal picnic location or as an occasional venue for concerts and other events. Despite the beautiful setting, The visitors have at times reported heavy pressures on their chests, difficulty moving, malfunction in electronics, spotting shadowy figures around the church. The main suspect behind these experiences is Jacob Christian Finkenhagen?
Yeah.
Okay, a priest at the church who served in the church starting in 1800 and died in 1837. By some accounts, he was a rather formidable figure in the community and died a rich man despite his lowly occupation. Some stories say that he died of old age, while others say he hung himself in his church. Other stories claim that the ghosts are actually his children, who are allegedly buried behind the altar. Given the weight that he carried in the community during his life, it's no surprise he may have lingered on there after death. Yet others think that the activity is due to a newlywed couple that drowned in the nearby river. This theory is that people are experiencing the terrifying final moments when one can't breathe underwater, explaining the pressure on the chest, the difficulty moving about. It could also be why the electronics are experiencing similar phenomenon. We all know that electronics and water don't mix. That said, we certainly encourage you to make a visit to this historic site. You might just want to bring a swimming buddy and ride your bikes.
Yeah, I did kind of clip something out there. The bit about riding your bikes, the electronics things happens in cars too. So, yeah, people have driven down there and then have the electronics in their cars go. Pfft. So, yeah, park a little ways out, take a walk, ride your bike, get some exercise.
Don't swim.
Yeah. So now we are going to move to the fjord village of Øy by the Hjørgren Fjord. Hjørgren Fjord, yes. Described as the most majestic and secluded fjord in all of Norway. You'll find one of the most distinct hotels in Europe here, the Hotel Union Øy. Built in 1891, this hotel neatly fits with the beautiful surroundings, offering a place where visitors can disconnect and savor their time.
This is the other place I want to go.
It looks nice. It's a place that is quite literally fit for royalty. The 27 rooms, all of which are individually furnished with carefully selected antiques, are named after notables who have stayed here. Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, King Oscar of Sweden, Queen Maud of Norway, and Princess Victoria of England. Authors Karen Blixen, Hamsun, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle have also stayed here, as well as composer Edvard Grieg, playwright Henrik Ibsen, and explorer Ronald Amundsen, to mention a few. But this hotel has also hosted a tragic love story from the end of the 19th century. A waitress named Lena fell madly in love with one of Kaiser Wilhelm's officers, a German duke trapped in an unhappy arranged marriage. The love between the two blossomed, and whenever the duke visited, he and Lena always stayed together in the Blue Room. He promised he would ask his wife for a divorce, but the divorce never happened. In some stories, he never asked. In other versions, his wife refused the divorce. In either case, the Duke ultimately winds up taking his own life at the end. Soon after, a heartbroken Lena disappeared into the fjord wearing a wedding dress and a crown of flowers. Ever since, people who are booked into the Blue Room swear they hear the ghost of Lena weeping. Others have said they've woken up to find her in the room with them. Every guest checking into the Blue Room is given a silver bowl of garlic. If you've had a long trip or just don't feel in the mood for having a ghostly visitation, you can keep the bowl in your room. However, if you're curious, all you have to do is leave the bowl outside your door and wait. Given the spooky reputation of this room, you need to be prepared to wait. The room is usually booked up at least a year in advance. Need to start planning a standalone trip there for like 2025, 2026 or something.
We already got trips planned for those years.
I know we do. Yeah.
Alright. Bærums, Verk?
Bærums, Verk.
Okay, I was right. So, just to the west of Oslo is the village of Bærum. The former ironworks in this community are widely renowned as one of the most haunted locales in Norway. The old ironworks here operated between 1610 and 1874, giving the front row seat to Norway's industrial revolution. As iron was discovered in the mountains surrounding Bærums, the landscape shifted. Mountains were hacked into, waterfalls were harnessed to use energy. That said, the community remained vibrant and beautiful. When you have a backdrop as gorgeous as the Norwegian landscape, even a mining town can be eye-catching. While the ironworks did eventually close, the people shifted with the times, finding other ways to keep the community intact. The people were not the only ones to stick around. Generations of spirits of the past have lingered on as well. Legend tells of a former ironworks owner that haunts the Work Street?
Verkskade,
Verkskade.
which is Verks is works and Gada is street.
Alright, Conrad Clausen. Conrad was only a young guy when the whole place fell on his shoulders. He took over the iron foundry in 1773 at 18 years old. In that time, small villages for the workers were often built around a foundry like the one in Bærums. A lot of them are still standing to this day. Now, Conrad gave all of his energy to the place where he lived and worked, even if his life was going to be a very short one. At the age of 31, Conrad died in his bedroom at the foundry. That same bedroom is now a meeting room for people working at the one-time foundry that has since been turned into a shopping mall. In this area of around Conrad's room, people hear doors creaking open and closed on their own, disembodied footsteps. Dogs are also strongly protest being brought into this space, but perhaps some of the strangest activity here is associated with the phones. In the middle of the night, when no one is at work to answer the phones, no one is up to call to them, but still, they're ringing. People working the night shift in the offices where Conrad once lived talk of the phone calls constantly during the night. If you try to take a call, it will only answer with a strange beeping sound. After that, the phone in the room next to you will start to ring, and then in the next room, and that's how it continues through the whole building. The telephone company has been consulted on numerous occasions, but their conclusions left far more questions than answers. They managed to trace the source of the calls back to the meeting room that was once Conrad's bedroom, sending out an unsettling chill through the staff at the mall. The lingering presence around Conrad's room isn't the only paranormal activity in this one-time foundry and community. It just so happens that this town is home to the oldest tavern in the country, now known as Akershus. Okay, go for it.
Vetrushuset Bærums Verk.
What he said. Housed in a building that is protected to preserve the heritage of this community. The tavern serves food based on old classical Norwegian recipes. Perhaps it's that familiar setting and the familiar food that keeps the spirits here alive. One spirit in particular has been raising a ruckus in the tavern for many years. She's known as the Woman in Green. We changed colors, folks.
Yes, we did.
The Woman in Green has a tendency to appear and disappear at times when she can impart the greatest impact, striking on the guests as she strolls around in her vibrant period clothing. Based on the description of the spirit, local historians have been led to believe that she's likely a woman named Anna Catherine. Anna was a powerhouse of a businesswoman in this town for over half a century. Between 1712 and 1766, she owned not only the ironworks but many other real estate and business holdings across the country. She was a highly respected leader in the community, establishing a school for the children of her employees, making significant contributions to the local house of worship. And as far as spirits goes, well, there are worse entities down lingering around. Anna and Conrad are just a couple of the many spirits that linger here in this town. There have been many sightings of bygone miners, ironworkers wandering across the town, as if they're still going about their business today. Amongst the living, there is a general consensus that these spirits are welcome in the community. Most of them are nice, or at least harmless. And this, of course, was once their home, long before any of the living were there today. In fact, the community wouldn't be what it is without the lifetime efforts of those whose spirits have stayed on. So it's a place where it's acknowledged that the spirits have just as much right to be in the town as those who call it home today.
Bærums Verk.
I'm wondering if we need to make a drinking game for when the Rainbow Lady Brigade shows up.
There are certain episodes where I don't think we'd make it halfway through before we're falling asleep here on the couch.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, it depends on the drink we make.
Yeah.
We could just plan around that and drink moonshine instead.
She can't do moonshine.
It makes me violently ill.
Immediately. As soon as it hits her stomach, it's coming right
Oh
back.
no, it doesn't even make it to the stomach. As soon as it hits my throat.
My heart hurts.
Either way. So, moving along. Alright, next up is Modum. It sounds just like modem, yes, spelled M-O-D-U-M. But in any case, this is another mining community just outside of Oslo. It's here that the Royal Cobalt Works of Modum were established in 1773 to mine, well, cobalt. In the 1800s, it became the largest company in Norway with more than 2,000 employees at its peak. The cobalt from the mine was used in the production of blue pigment for porcelain and glass industries across the world. It's at this mine that we can also find the legend of Blåmannen, the Blue Man. Bla, blue, mannen, the man, the blue man. So, originating in the 19th century, Blåmannen would appear in a mining uniform carrying a mining lamp. Most think that he is the spirit of Hans Seaman Poulsen Roeder, a miner at the Royal Cobalt Works in the early 1800s. His appearance is considered to be a bad omen as accidents happen after he is seen. That's not to say that Blåmannen causes the accidents, rather he serves as a warning of bad things to come, and that he is there to warn the unsuspecting miners of imminent danger and to get them away from an impending accident site. According to the oral stories, it is believed that Blåmannen tried to notify the miners of the imminent danger, as well as try to get those closest to the accident away. At the same time, he brought fear because someone would likely die after he had appeared. The worst accident happened on December 13, 1854, when Blåmannen had to appear 3 times before the workers realized that it was a warning and that they had to get out. By then, it was already too late. 6 miners lost their lives at that time. Only the final miner to enter the mine survived the landslide. He was the one who shared the story about the encounter with Blåmannen. The cobalt mines would close in 1893, but the evidence of the activity that took place there remains today. The one-time mining complex contains 65 buildings over more than 400 acres of land. It is a major art hub with multiple art galleries, but there are lots of other activities as well, including excursions into the mine shafts. If you decide to delve into the depths of the earth here, just hope that you do not have a brush with Blåmannen.
I'm not sure Chris needs more meat.
He's gonna have to finish mine.
Alright.
He's like looking around like, who?
Trade.
Alright, so
Steven
now we're
offered
gonna
to bring
throw...
more meat.
Huh?
Steven offered to bring more meat.
Oh, drink.
Yeah.
Skull.
Is that our Steven?
Yes.
The one that actually made this game?
Yes. Yep, yeah. Steven in the chat here, he made this, and it is quite tasty, so...
Oh wait, is this Steven's meat?
Yeah.
Yes,
Dude,
it
this
is
is
Steven's meat.
delicious.
Yeah. Skull.
Skull, man.
Alright, so now we're going to throw in a little Norwegian folklore because, you know, we had to. This is part Chris really enjoyed.
Yes, I had to throw this in at the end. We hinted and, just briefly touched on traditional Norwegian folklore in the introduction, but wanted to go ahead and throw something in that
we talked about trolls.
Yeah. We talked about trolls a little bit, but anyways.
You know, there's Odin, Freya, Thor, Loki. You all know those guys.
Yeah.
And if
Who?
you haven't, what?
Who?
Oh dear. You know Loki's gonna come find you.
I'm messing with Loki, so it's okay.
Of course, there are dozens of gods in Norse mythology. Plus, there's the dwarves, the elves, the trolls, all of who have had stories told and adapted time and again for many centuries, right into the modern day. Most notably, Tolkien and our Lord of the Ring trilogy. But for the sake of this evening, we're not going to talk about MCU. We're going to touch on the less discussed creature from Norwegian folklore, the Huldra. Also known as the
People just want us to get trashed.
Yeah, they do. Like, I'm gonna be real. That's part of the thing that I advertise this with. Like, I just watch us get drunk.
Skoldstrad.
Skoldstrad. Okay.
Yeah.
That's Skoldstrad. That's the only time you have to say
So
that.
that's why they're called that in. What was it? The people are called the North Huldra.
Yeah. Ra
Okay.
is spirit. Ra is spirit.
Okay.
Skols is forest. Ra is spirit.
I'm learning.
Good job.
Skoldstrad.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm learning.
Crash course.
Okay, so the forest spirit. The Huldra is described as the beautiful and seductive forest dweller. They look like normal women with one jarring expectation. They have a long tail that is kind of like a cow's. The Huldra are not inherently good or evil, as an encounter with one could go one of two ways. A good Huldra encounter may entail a Huldra appearing before an unsuspecting man without actively trying to seduce him. If the man is kind and courteous, and even after noticing her tail, the Huldra may reward them with good fortune or advice. One such encounter tells of a Huldra appearing before a young man fishing by a lake. The man nearly faints from lack of breath as the woman's beauty has him spellbound. He catches himself, however, and he notices the tail sticking out from below her skirt. Very politely, he points out that her petticoat seems to be showing, and as a reward for his courtesy, the Huldra directs the young man to the other side of the lake, where he proceeds to catch fish with every catch of his line for the rest of the day. Then there's the not-so-good Huldra encounters. These usually speak of wild women luring unmarried men into the forest lairs. You're safe. Once there, physical pleasure typically followed, lots of it, after which the Huldra would ask the man to marry her, refusing to let him go until he agreed. If the man outright refused the marriage, the Huldra would kill him then and there.
No messing around.
Yeah.
Just
If the two did get married, the Huldra would lose her tail, but would turn it back into a hideous hag with the strength of 10 men. Even in marriage, the Huldra would eventually wind up killing her husband. At least if he didn't go mad and end himself for the situation before, you know.
I mean, same though.
Yeah. He's still dead.
I mean, like, same
Her hand,
though.
his hand, still dead. Some stories tell of the Huldra taking a shortcut and foregoing the marriage talk altogether. In these cases, the Huldra would force the man to dance until he dropped dead.
See, this is what I really like about Europe, specifically more colder places in Europe. They really like to dance to death. It's neat.
Yep. Then the arrival of Christianity in the Nordic countries gave this creature's tale a bit of a twist. It states that the Huldra was the daughter of Adam and Eve. One day Eve was bathing her children. God came for a visit, and not all the children were clean. Eve hid the dirty ones. Having seen the children, God asked if there was any more, to which Eve replied, "No." God declared, "Then let all that is hidden remain hidden." And the hidden children became dark.
the underjordskin.
Meaning the ones living underground.
Underjordskin.
And the Huldra being one of them. There is no certain origin story of the Huldra, but mythology scholars believe that it's most likely the inspiration for this creature was a reclusive single woman living in the woods. This is an era in where such a lifestyle was unfathomable, and anyone living outside the community culture must be associated with the supernatural. In the years since its origin, the legend of the Huldra grew and evolved into fit various cultures and changing times. While not as prominent as some of the other folklore creatures in modern era, the influence of the Huldra can still be seen in some facets of contemporary art and culture. It's just another thread in the deep Norwegian cultural fabric.
So I did, as I was kind of doing my research, I did find that there was somebody made, of course, it was Norwegian, made a movie, The Huldra, like back I think in like 2016 or something like that. So they do still talk about it, and they do still, it still shows up in kind of more modern pop culture. Just seems very isolated to. It's very isolated to the Scandinavian countries.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of the really cool Scandinavian movies and stuff.
I've noticed their Netflix. Netflix has some really interesting stuff. They have a lot of German and Norwegian dubbed stuff on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
I've watched several of the shows, and they're interesting. Some of them are pretty darn good.
I'm loving the accessibility that Netflix is bringing to the table. That's nice. I wish the other places would come along. You can, if you like Scandinavian languages, you totally can like watch Frozen in whatever Scandinavian language you want. By the way,
Did not know that. I mean, it makes sense.
you can. It's awesome. You can watch any of them too. By the way, there's like 20 languages that Disney has. They're all cool. But yeah. I think one of the big reasons is their shows are weird.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Like they I love them, but boy, that is a lot for America to take. Like we could barely take Umbrella Academy in its purest form.
True.
Like we had to change it so much for it to fit on television. Like I can't imagine some of the things that come over from Norway and Sweden specifically. Sweden's weird.
Yeah. But yeah, a few of the shows that I've watched that have been imported from Germany, Norway, Sweden, they have a very vivid imagination. Well, we'll put it that way.
But let's give them credit.
I give them, yeah.
I really love their horror movies. Like Sweden got us Let the Right One In. Wait, I don't remember what it was called in America.
I'd have to go back and look them all up, honestly.
But that really cool Chloe Grace Moretz vampire movie. That was really awesome. That's Sweden for ya.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check them all out and see what the names actually were. I'm blanking right now for some reason.
So when we do get like Scandinavian, when we do get Scandinavian culture, like guys, they're like creatures. My allergies are getting to me. In case you guys have not noticed. But when we get like myths, like the Huldra or something like that, it's usually like kind of put in the background and like more as a fun fact, something that doesn't actually get out loud named and just happens, and that's fine too. I like that mystery.
Yeah, but there's so much. I mean, we'll come back and we'll be revisiting Norway at some point for sure.
I'm still writing that it's mostly Icelandic, but Saga Age, ghosts and ghouls and stuff. I'm still writing that.
But yeah, so much to it. I mean, I was actually a little surprised. I mean, I knew that there was like the Norse god, the pantheon of Norse gods. I knew that there were quite a few of them.
A lot.
I didn't know that there were like dozens upon dozens of them. The list of Norse gods is very extensive. It's not necessarily ranked as much as there are families. And there's a lot. Yeah. But honestly, one could argue probably Huldra would be like a god of some sort. One could argue that just because of there's a lot to unpack with the mythologies and stuff. Oh yeah. So yeah, we will revisit that sometime. Una said hello. It's been a while since.
Una's coming up.
Yeah.
She heard my voice and she's like, "What is that?"
So this is the first time Mommy didn't snag me tonight. Because I've been getting snagged because I've been on the table through most of the show.
Yeah. So, but anyways, that was our last story for tonight.
Y'all were fun.
Yes.
Always lovely talking to you, Patrick.
Pleasure chatting with you all, as always. You're saying hello. You gonna say hello? No, we're not gonna talk. We're not being told to get off the table. We have nothing to speak about.
But as Chris mentioned, it's going to be a few weeks until our next show. Again, the last Monday.
Which is the 29th.
What are we talking about?
Japan.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yep.
Because this is for my.
I gotta get you my notes.
This is for my nephew who's about to go.
Yep.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, spending how long over there?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Japan has so many layers of really spooky ghosts.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Like
And they're another one.
they range from the absolutely wildly weird to the genuinely like freaky.
I just finished watching not that long ago. Alice in Borderlands.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah.
So I wouldn't like it. Huh?
Probably not your thing.
Uh-uh.
No, probably not your thing. But yeah, they're another one that a lot of Japanese stuff, Korean stuff. Well, I think Netflix does stuff all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have a lot of, they have their hands in a lot of pies or countries or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, we'll be talking about that in 3 weeks, Haunted Japan, and yeah. Until then, hope that you all have a lovely May, since we're basically be most of the month before we talk to you again. Hope you have a good month. If you want to come on out, we're still doing tours. Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Once we hit Memorial Day, we will be doing tours 7 nights a week.
Oh yeah, spring market.
Yes, and this coming Saturday, the 13th, Lee and Zoe are going to be manning a booth at the Spring Fest, Churchill Spring Fest, spring market that's going to be over at Libby Hill Park. So you can go over there, you can see them, you can pick up some Haunts merch and all
Pride
kinds,
merch, spooky merch.
all kinds of spooky merchandise. So yeah.
And we won't be there, but I'll still plug them. I won't be there either, but Comic-Con's on Saturday
yes.
too.
Yep, the Richmond Comic
Fill
Con.
your day up, my friends.
Yep, so we weren't able to make that one. We just had too much going on, but we will be at the Richmond Comic Cons that are taking place in August and November.
Yeah.
So we don't plan in advance or anything.
That is just, like, I was surprised when you were like, oh yeah, we got a booth for both in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you planned like over 2 months ahead.
We have to.
We typically plan as far in advance as possible.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean,
Welcome to our life.
we're already talking about the party for our 20th wedding anniversary,
Which is
2 years.
2026.
Jesus.
But it's.
What are we gonna drink?
Well, we will be drinking, but we're planning for Key West, which means there needs to be
Planning.
planning
Yes.
for hotels and beach permit for the renewal ceremony and all that stuff.
Aww.
Aww.
Renewal ceremony.
So adorable.
So cute.
That's us. We're adorable. And Yuna's just like.
Yuna's not amused.
Yuna's not amused at all. It's like, I thought I was adorable.
Yuna's pissed that she can't go.
It was like, I can't go to this trip.
Unless we drive and find a pet-friendly place to stay. Yeah. We got some time to plan.
Yes, we do.
Anyways.
And Alex, we're always happy to cause some, relaxation.
Yeah.
Children are a lot, I know.
So anything else?
Nope.
Nope. Nope. All right. So you all have a lovely evening, and yeah, we'll talk to you all again hopefully in just 3 weeks' time. So have a good night, everybody.
Night.
Beth's falling asleep here on the
Beth's
couch.
gonna-
Your mom is down for Key West, by the way. Hi, Chris's mom.
Mom's always down for Key West.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.